Earlier, we discussed the philosophical roots, the philosophical foundations, where we mentioned that okay, the philosophical foundation is broadly Hinduism, and particularly we mentioned that the Sadharanikaran model of communication is based on Mimamsa philosophy and Vedanta philosophy. In a nutshell, that was discussed in the earlier session, and today we are discussing about. You can go to page 22. The easiest way to understand something is to start with the uh, term, the word itself. So, what is Natyashastra? So, here, what I have emphasized, the word Natyashastra signifies a classical Sanskrit text authored by Bharata and or the Shastra on Natya. So, two meanings. One meaning is Natya Shastra is a classical Sanskrit text authored by Bharata. But another meaning is a bit broader, where Natya Shastra is Shastra on Natya. That means if other acharyas might have written any text on Natya, then that also will be included under Natya Shastra. So this is the general meaning. Okay, the general meaning of Natya Shastra is any Shastra or treatise or systematic, let us say, text that is on uh, Natya is Natya Shastra. But particularly the word Natya Shastra has been used for a classical Sanskrit text authored by Bharata. Okay, the authorship also can be analyzed, but very easily. Okay, now whenever we say Natya Shastra, the very first person to be remembered is Bharata. So then Natya Shastra has different names like Sata Sahasri. Sata Sahasri is another famous name for Natya Shastra. So in Sanskrit, generally a single text may have different names, like Vakyapadiya. The conventional name of Vakyapadiya is Trikandi. Why? Because it has three kandas or three, let us say, volumes, three different books, let us say. So Trikandi and Vakyapadiya, synonymous. Likewise, Natya Shastra and Sata Sahasri, they are synonymous words. And you might have already understood why Sata Sahasri, because there were 6,000 verses. Okay, that is why Bharata is referred as Sata Sahasri Kara, the person who has authored Sata Sahasri. That means a text which has 6,000 verses. However, the presently available works, they contains about 5,600 verses. Okay, and yeah, there is yet another version which has even 200 verses reduced. And having multiple versions of Natya Shastra is not a new thing. Like even in the time of Abhinavagupta, like 1000 years ago, there were two recensions or two versions of Natya Shastra even that time. Okay, so anybody, can you enlighten us why there was at least two versions of Natya Shastra even at that time.
So maybe because there was a difference between theoretical Natya Shastra and practical Natya Shastra. I'm not very sure of. I'm just saying maybe.
Okay, okay, that is one, yeah, interesting guess. Uh, However, that was not the case. Okay, so all the theories and practices, okay, both dimensions were there, but the problem at that time was there was no printing machine, or at least not in a wider use. That is why either they had to memorize the whole text, or there were writers who would be preparing handwritten copies of the book. And very interestingly, researchers have discovered that many of them, they would be illiterate. For them, what was there was not a word. They were not letters. They were treating them like arts, just like they would be doing other artistic works. They could copy them. They would copy the letters exactly. And while doing so, either due to this oral transmission, or let us say due to some difficulties with the writers, they might have missed certain slokas, and hence or they might have copied like some slokas from here, but some slokas from there. So this is this is the analysis by scholars in the field of Natya Shastra. So in later years, the the number of versions might have increased. At least, yeah, even in the time of Abhinav Gupta, there were two versions. And uh, however, it is interesting that though the verses might have lost, the actual number of verses may not be 6,000, but the text, the book, has been referred as Sata Sahasri. Maybe, yeah. And even traditions say earlier there were 12,000 verses, or even bigger than that. Okay. But the current Natya Shastra is associated with Bharata, and its another name is Sata Sahasri. And Natya Shastra has been successful in generating a school of knowledge, a discipline of knowledge. So there are so many people who are actually working in the field of Natya, practicing it, not only practicing it, but let us say increasing the intellectual tradition on Natya Shastra. So whenever we say Natya Shastra, now we can say it means three things. One, a discipline of knowledge. Second thing, any Shastra on Natya. Third thing, and very specific, a classical Sanskrit text authored by Bharata Muni. So yeah, Dwadasa Sahasri uh, name is also there, because yeah, there are references for that. And Sata Sahasri and Dwadasa Sahasri, I'm in page 23. Uh, they were based upon a still old treatise entitled Natya Veda or Gandharva Veda, consisting of 36,000 verses, that was written by Brahma himself. Though we don't have any access to this text, the present text is uh, related to Bharata Muni, and yeah, it is the continuation of the Sata Sahasri. And another thing is, okay, uh, Natya Shastra. Whenever we said Natya Shastra, we remember Bharata's name, and whenever we say Gandharva Veda or Natya Veda, then uh, Brahma, Bhagavan Brahma is remembered. And in fact, in the Natya Shastra, you will find there are traditions. Some traditions would come directly from Bhagavan Shiva, some traditions directly from Devi Parvati, some traditions, like especially British, from Bhagavan Vishnu, and yeah, here is another tradition of Bhagavan Brahma. So it's a magnum opus, and it is possible that there were so many traditions, but in the time of Bharata, all of them were, in a way, synthesized in a book. Then the second thing is how the Natya Shastra tradition, let us say, developed further. Then, as we read from the book earlier, Natya Veda, then 36,000 verses or 12,000 verses, then 6,000 verses. I'm in page 24 now. So then what happened? Natya uh, Shastra became successful in generating other texts like Natyalochan and even Abhinay Darpan and so many others. So what what we can say, uh, I have directly jumped to page 27. Drawing on the evidence of various classical Sanskrit texts, it is observed that there existed not only different schools on Natya, but also traditional works of the Natas existed at least in the time of Panini, and the Nata as a class did exist. So, since Panini is a historical person, uh, this reference has been given. So, in the times of Panini, the Sanskrit drama was definitely in vogue, and the Natya Shastra referred to by Panini gives us the idea that the works dealing with the actor's art existed in his time. So, uh, and what is the time of the Natya Shastra itself? That has been discussed a bit later on. But so Bharata is the Sutrakara. In the Bharatvarsha tradition, Natya Shastra has a definite uh, tradition, and Bharata is considered as the Sutrakara. Sutrakara is considered the first authentic person. Okay, there exist other acharyas in earlier times, obviously, but Sutrakara is someone who gives that tradition of knowledge a definite shape. Like in case of Mimamsa philosophy, Jaimini is the Sutrakara. In case of, let us say, uh, Brahma Sutra, Badrayana is Sutrakara. Likewise, in case of Natya Shastra, Bharata is considered the Sutrakara. And then in Vedic Hindu philosophical traditions, Sutra, Vritti, Vasya, and Vartika. These are written. So, okay, Bharata's primary texts might have been written in Sutra style, and then, okay, it is believed that, page 28, on Bharata's Natya Shastra, there were Nanya Devas Vasya. So the Vasya text was written by Nanya Deva, Arsa's Vartika, Rahula's Karika, Matrigupta's Tika and Kirtidhara's Vyakhya. So actually, how the Natya Shastra tradition evolved, Bharata came up with Natya Shastra, the Satasahasi, but it needed further explanation. And other acharyas, in due course of time, they worked. Like Nanya Deva, he came up with Bhashya, Harsha came up with Vartika, Rahula came up with Karika, Matrigupta came up with Tika, and Kirtidhara came with Vyakhya. And there is yet another type of text which is called Prakarana Grantha. So, independent texts but based on the classical text, like this book, Theory and Practice of Communication, Bharat Muni. This is in the tradition of Natya Shastra. Obviously, from the modern point of view, this is in the tradition of communication theory. Okay, it's interdisciplinary text, we can say. That is why it belongs to communication theory as well as Natya Shastra tradition. But is it Bhashya? No. Is it Vartika? No. Is it Karika? No. Is it Tika? No. Is it Vyakhya? No. It is Prakarana Grantha. So, not going to, let us say, detailed definition of all these kinds of texts. What I can say, in Sanskrit tradition, scholars come up with various kinds of texts on the original text. They do upabrimhan. Upabrimhan means they do further explanation. For the people working in the field of Natya Shastra, this book will be upabrimhan of Natya Shastra. But for the people working in the field of communication theory, this book is a book in the field of, let us say, indigenous communication theory, a book in the field of Bharatvarshiya communication theory, a book in the field of Hindu communication theory. But for the Natya Shastra people, it would be, yeah, other way. So then Bharata's Natya Shastra is not a text in isolation. In fact, there are so many other texts. Then the next issue discussed is about the author himself. Okay, there are debates on him, whether he was a real person, whether he was a mythical person, whether there was not a single Bharata, but the Bharata Gana. And I have discussed all these things. And uh, since Bharata has been, okay, referred as Muni, and Muni cannot be a group. Okay, he must be a person. That is my, okay, let us say, finding. So then what other scholars have been discussing, referring to that, where I have landed is considering Bharata as a historical person. And then another huge debate is on Bharata's date. There are so many debates. You are aware of the fact that whenever the Westerners uh, write history of Sanskrit literature or anything in various parts of the world, they would like to see the physical evidences and detailed discussion on the authors, all these things. Otherwise, yeah, they will come up with a lesser uh, number. So that is why there are different scholars, different researchers who have been saying different things about the timeline of the Natya Shastra. But what I have emphasized is to reiterate the traditional belief. And what is the traditional belief? Hindu traditional belief ascertains Natya Shastra's origin to great antiquity, next only to that of the Vedas. Its origin to great antiquity, next only to that of the Vedas, can be substantiated by various let us say, arguments. So, what would be pertinent from the indigenous Bharatvarsha point of view is Natya Shastra was composed by Bharata just after the completion of the Vedic texts and before the Puranas, before, even before Ramayana, and obviously even before Mahabharata. So that has been discussed. I'd like to, okay, open the floor for a bit of discussion before we move further. Okay, we have come up to page 35. Anything you would like to add, or you would like to ask, you would like to give feedback, please.
So, Natya Shastra in today's context is more or less associated more with the dance and bhav, the natak shali. Even the nat or the sutradhar is also associated with the theatre, or has it permeated into other styles of communication as well?
Okay, so it's very interesting to see how people understand the word Natya Shastra. Okay, so even I have like conducted a kind of pilot study. Whenever I asked people, what do you understand by Natya Shastra? Most of them mention Bharatnatyam. Okay, even there is one book which erroneously mentioned. Okay, that was a translation in Nepali, translation of Bharata Muni's Natya Shastra. But in brackets, they mention Bharatnatyam, which is not correct. Bharatnatyam is obviously rooted to Natya Shastra, but Bharatnatyam is not the whole of Natya Shastra. The second thing, then, other persons who went a bit wider, they mentioned Natya Shastra means something about Natak, drama. So for them, Natya Shastra is all about drama. So we cannot say they were wrong, but they also have not covered the totality of Natya Shastra. So Natya Shastra is obviously about dramaturgy, not only drama, but let us say dramaturgy, whole science of drama. But it is not only that. It consists of theories on, let us say, bhavas and rasas, obviously that rasa sutra, and and it also is the root of various, let us say, uh, discussions, various traditions in the field of poetics. Not only I'm not saying poetry. Poetry is there, obviously. I'm telling poetics. Poetics is theory on, let us say, poetry and even beyond. So Natya Shastra, by virtue of a text primarily on Natya, and what is Natya? In Natya or Natak, in the drama, in a way, we reproduce the whole world. So whatever will be in the real world, the replication will be in the Natya itself. So there shall be, for instance, politics. There shall be culture. There shall be economics. There shall be history. There shall be geography. So I have tried to mention few of them here in this book, in the very chapter, in the very chapter. So even there is geography, there is history, there is culture, there is obviously detailed discussion on human body and its limbs. Okay, in a way it presents anatomy and physiology as well. What we understood as in anatomy and physiology, we can find things related to that as well. So that is why Okay, anything? Yeah, you would like to speak.
Sir,
Go ahead.
I just read in the text you just provided us. Shivji is also has also contributed to this Natya Shastra, and Mata Parvati has also gave some developments to it.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
Vishnu ji is being somewhere referred to uh, develop the drama section of Natya Shastra. How can this
yeah.
be? Can you more elaborate?
So, as I mentioned earlier, in fact, there seem many traditions of Natya, and some of them might have more interest on this or that aspect. So this comes in two ways. Like one says, okay, what was taken from Rig Veda, what was taken from Sama Veda, what was taken from Ajur Veda, what was taken from Atharva Veda. That also shows the multiple resources the author might have used. Another approach is to ascribe different traditions of acharyas, okay, who learned what thing from whom. So while dealing that, okay, uh, specific aspects has been associated with either Shiva or Parvati or Vishnu or Brahma. So it seems that the Natya was much in practice in the society, but people were doing in diverse ways, and Bharata wanted to, let us say, compile them to present a comprehensive version, to present practices as well as theories, and hence he tried to reconcile between all these dimensions. So what was the specific thing he took from whom? That is obviously there. So I'm not repeating that. But what I'm trying to explain is Natya was there since time immemorial, and Bharata had to, let us say, theorize that, had to present a comprehensive version, and while doing so, he took things, all the things he could take at that time. So that is why Natya Shastra became so diverse, and Natya Shastra has contributions from different authorities, different acharyas, or different resources. Okay, then the next thing we shall discuss in page 36 is rediscovery of Natya Shastra. So by rediscovery, you already can guess that it was in oblivion for a significant time period. Prior to 1894, Natya Shastra was not available in the printed form. It is believed that it was preserved in the same manner as all other Vedas and Shastras had been preserved. Though number of manuscripts more or less complete existed in Bharatvarsha, once the text was considered to be lost forever. H.S. Wilson, who published in 1826 the first volume of his famous work in the subject, deplored that Natya Shastra mentioned and quoted in several old commentaries and other works had been lost forever. Okay, so that was the time. So Natya Shastra was quite popular, in one hand, but on the other hand, having access to the complete manuscript of Natya Shastra was so difficult that, okay, it was once considered in oblivion, lost forever. Natya Shastra was not available to modern scholars until it was discovered by Fitz Edward Hall, an American Indologist, in 1865. Ghosh presents an account of the rediscovery of Natya Shastra by Western Sanskritis. F. Hall, who published an edition of Dasarupaka, of Dhananjaya in 1865 included chapters XVIII to XX and XXIV of Natyashastra as an appendix. According to Ghosh, W. Heman published a valuable article on the contents of Natyashastra in 1874. P. Regnault published chapter XVII in 1888, 80 chapters XV in 1884, with translation followed by chapters V and VII, like that. J. Grosset published another chapter in 1888. So, such endeavors were certainly significant, and in 1894, two Indian Pandits, Shivadatta and Kashinath Panduranga Parab, published the original Sanskrit text of Natya Shastra. So, this is known as the Bombay edition. So, it was only in 1894 full text of Natya Shastra was available to modern scholars in the printed form. So, following J. Grosset's critical edition of the chapters was published in 1898. Okay. So, likewise, a complete translation of the text into English was done for the very first time by Manomohan Ghosh, of which the first volume was published in 1951. So, it took several years, we can see. So, this is how Natya Shastra came into notice. So then I have discussed about some scholars on the Natya Shastra tradition, and the remaining section is on the contents of Natya Shastra. Before going into that, okay, if we have any queries or any feedback, what has been discussed so far. Today's class may not be very interesting because we haven't gone to the contents uh, exactly, but we are trying to understand the textual roots of the Sadharanikaran model of communication. Had Natya Shastra been lost forever, then okay, it would not be possible to construct a communication model called Sadharanikaran model of communication. So yeah, we shall pay tribute to these great people who actually rediscovered Natya Shastra. So the next issue is Natya Shastra. What is there in Natya Shastra in detail? Natya Shastra is a voluminous work of 36 chapters, adhyayas. In Sanskrit tradition, some texts have adhyayas, some kandas, some parvas, okay, some skandhas, different denominations. Natya Shastra has adhyayas, chapters, and they are 36 in number, and they are almost entirely composed in verse with a sprinkling of prose. It is pertinent to comprehend the contents of the text before exploring it from communication perspective. Okay, so what is in the first adhyaya? Now, all 36 adhyayas, I have given a brief overview of that. In the first adhyaya, the first adhyaya mainly deals with the origin of drama. The opening verse starts with the expression of veneration to Pitamaha, Brahma and Maheshwara. Then Bharata goes to Brahma and Shiva because they are closely associated with the discipline of Natya. Whereas Brahma is the author of Natya Veda, Shiva is the Nataraja. Okay, that uh, Natya in practice, it seems that Bharata considered Shiva the authority in Natya in practice, and the textual tradition was okay referred to Brahma. Then in succeeding verses, uh, it describes that once Atreya and other sages approached Bharata during an intermission of studies on Adhyaya. So there was tradition in Gurukula. Certain days were designated for anadhyaya, such days in which the teaching and learning would not be done. It was a kind of intermission. So during such intermission, they met him and expressed their desire to know about various aspects of Natya Veda. In this course, they put in five questions in this regard. O Brahmin, how did originate the Natya Veda similar to the Vedas which you have properly composed, and for whom is it meant? How many limbs does it possess? What is its extent and how is it to be applied? Please speak to us in detail about it all. So if you see this, it's very systematic thing. Likewise, while doing research, uh, uh, in present days, first we pose objectives of research. Actually, while writing dissertation or thesis, we do this. We have objectives, and based on those objectives we have research questions, and okay, then uh, literature review is there. There is research methodology, research design, and finally, okay, those research questions will be addressed. So this ancient text follows that pattern. So Atreya and other sages, they put question to Bharata, and Bharata answers them very systematically. Okay, so there is some ritual. Uh, then he starts with uh, some let us say background. Okay, so if you see how preparation for uh, natya is done, that is also discussed here. And then uh, if you see what we discussed in our first session, why human life is there, it is for the attainment of dharma, artha, kama, and moksha. And this is the objective of natya shastra also. Okay, it attains that in a different way, like how Upanishads initiate people for dharma, artha, kama, and moksha. That is different. How Natya Shastra does. Natya Shastra does it from an entertaining perspective. But yeah, dharma also shall be taught through Natya. The means for artha, that also shall be taught. The ways to have, let us say, pertinent kama, all these pleasures and yeah, fulfilling all desires, that also shall be there. But ultimately it shall lead people to moksha. So if you go to Vakyapadiya, for instance, there also, that doesn't talk just about words and sentences, but to achieve the true knowledge and finally attain moksha. And here also, so it is a representation of the states of the three worlds. What is Natya? Natya is representation of all three worlds. Okay, Akash, Martya, and uh, Patal, you may say. So everything, whatever is in the world, that will be presented through Natya. That is why it is said there is nothing out of Natya Shastra. Whatever is in the world, that is found in Natya Shastra. Okay, so Natya Shastra, first Adhyaya, 116. This verse says, there is no wise maxim, no learning, no art or craft, no device, no action that is not found in the drama. So we can say even communication is there. I'm in page 42 now. Yeah. So even insights for communication is there. Why? Because there is no wise maxim, no learning, no art or craft, no device, no action that is not found in the dramas. Hence I have devised the drama in which meet all the departments of knowledge, different arts and various actions. So you should not have any anger towards the yeah. Natyashastra. So stories taken out of the Vedic lore, a mimicry of exploits of god, asura kings as well as householders at that time, and human nature with the joys and sorrows depicted by means of representations like wars, costumes, and yeah, sattvas means facial expressions, all these things. And then yajna or puja was performed, that is also mentioned there. So basically in the first adhyaya what is discussed, how this text came into existence. It was due to request of Atreya and other sages that Bharata had to work on it. While doing so, he drew on different resources and came up with this. And while doing so, this was made in such a way that no wise maxim, no learning, no art or craft, no device, no action that was out of this, and all the departments of knowledge, different arts and various actions were included in Natyashastra. This is very beautifully explained in the first adhyaya. In the second adhyaya, uh, it is concerned about the description of the playhouse. Okay, like different types of playhouses, theaters, we may say, that have been discussed here. Then selection of a suitable site, that is also discussed. In the finally description of square and triangular playhouses, that is also discussed. Then it goes to the third adhyaya, in which uh, describing the puja to the gods of the stage, provision of making obeisance to Shiva, Brahma, Vishnu, and other gods, divine sages, and others. There is so the process of installation of the gods, and even having provision for homo, and good results of consecrating the stage and evils following on consecration, that is also discussed. Very technical. In the fourth adhyaya, Tandava dance has been mentioned. Okay, Shiva Tandava, it is quite famous. So that Tandava is mentioned there. How, why Tandava should have been done. Shiva orders Tandu to instruct Bharata about different types of Angahara, all these things. Okay, then Shiva dance with the use of Retsakas and Angaharas. Okay, then in the fifth adhyaya, it discusses about Purvaranga, preliminaries. And okay, so what is done behind the curtain, all these things. We cannot go into great detail right now, but all the parties have a sense of ownership in the natya that has been ensured in the fifth adhyaya. And in the sixth adhyaya, uh, so the very important for us, for for theoretical discussion, uh, this sixth adhyaya is very important, because what are the different types of rasa, it is discussed here. How do rasas get their quality or rasatva? Why is bhava called so? So all bhavas, rasas, and what are the meaning of sangaha, karika, niyukta, all these things. So especially it gives eight type of rasas. Sringara, erotic. I have gone to page 48, 49. Okay. Hasya, which has been translated as comic. Karuna, pathetic. Raudra, furious. Vira, heroic. Bhayanaka, terrible. Vivhatsa, odious. And Adbhuta, marvelous. All these are, okay. They are named by Brahma. It is called. So that is why earlier, if you remember, I had mentioned, it seems that the applied aspect of Natya Shastra has come from Shiva, and some certainly from Parvati, and the theoretical aspects that has come from Brahma. So then before explaining rasa, then bhava, avinaya, and other things also have been discussed. So, and the relationship between bhava and rasa. So bhava and rasa are in fact one, but whenever it is about, let us say, expression, they are bhavas. When they are experienced, they are rasas. And in the seventh adhyaya, bhava is discussed, and also discussed are vibhava, anubhava, sthai bhava, devichari or sanchari bhava, and satvika bhava, which we are not going to discuss today, just mention. Okay, there are 8 sthai bhavas, 33 sanchari bhavas, 8 satvika bhavas, and so altogether, if you see page 51, I have mentioned here, thus there are 49 bhavas, which are psychological states altogether. Along with their description, Bharata describes application of different bhavas to different rasas in the 7th adhyaya. So that will be done later on in this book. So from 8 to 13, the 8th adhyaya starts with Abhinaya as the subject matter. And thus this adhyaya mainly treats with procedures of the ancillary limbs and the gestures of minor limbs. From 9th Adhyay towards Bharata starts to describe gestures of major limbs. Then 10th Adhyay is devoted to gestures of breast, sides, belly, waist. So here we can see, as I mentioned earlier, anatomy and physiology of human body can be seen here, but with the application of different limbs and ancillary limbs. 11th adhyay is to uh, sari vidhana, explanation of the various movements. 12th adhyay is described to mandala movements, specific kind of movements. And uh, 13th adhyay is gati prasara, that means different gates. So the contents from 8 to 13, together with the discussion of angahara, karana, rechaka, and related subject matters made in the 4th adhyaya, are very important for the study of non-verbal communication as envisioned in the Natyashastra. So, as I mentioned, 6 and 7 chapters, they were very important to understand the theoretical aspects, bhavas and rasas. But uh, from 8 to 13th, they were mostly what can be understood as non-verbal communication. And the 14th adhyay is about zonal divisions. From 15 to 19, they are related to vaga vinaya or vachika abhinaya. So verbal communication. So from the communication point of view, I mentioned three things. Okay, some chapters are specifically devoted to non-verbal communication. Some chapters are specifically devoted to verbal communication aspects, and some chapters are specifically devoted to the theories which will be applicable for uh, verbal as well as non-verbal. So 20th and 21st, they discuss about various types of plays like nataka, prakarana, anka, vyayoga, vana, uh, samavakara, vithi, prahasan, dima, ihamarga, etc. So it will be very important for the literature people, but yeah, for us who are basically concerned with communication theory, we may not find it very interesting. And the 22nd is devoted to style, British. 23rd is Aharya Vinaya, like revelation through costumes and makeup, which is very important aspect of non-verbal communication, and even for intercultural communication, this is very important. So 24th is about basic representation, harmonious use of four kinds of abhinaya. Okay, then like in earlier chapters, he discussed different abhinayas, angika, vachika, aharya, separately, but here he discusses how all these can be used simultaneously. And the 26th adhyaya is Chitra Vinaya or special representation. special representation various objects and ideas like physical context, physical objects. So it is also very important for communication. Then the 26th adhyaya is about uh, Siddhi, and from 28 to 23, music, Nritya. Nritya and Natya are very closely discussed. And okay, like Bharatnatyam, Kuchipudi, and all different types of dances, they have grounding in these chapters. And in the 34th and the 35th adhyayas, he discusses about the residual matters concerning the production of the natya. For instance, different types of characters. What kind of characters shall be assigned for? Okay, uh, for specific uh, character in the drama. So the concept of casting director, which is widely used in present context, we can see in this chapter. In the 35th adhyaya, there is distribution of roles to various types of characters. Okay, so to employ actors after considering together their gait, speech, and movement of limbs, as well as their strength and nature. So this is also very important, especially those who work in the field of film and okay drama. And the final chapter, the 36th adhyaya, page I have reached to page 59. The principal subject matter of this adhyaya is about the descent of the Natya on earth. How okay Natya came into earth, the story. It also consists of other subject matters such as Nandi, benediction, evolution of the director on the stage. Okay, and okay, so this is how, if we do even a cursory reading of the contents of Natyasastra, it is enough to comprehend the broad scope of the treatise. By virtue of Natya being representation of three world, okay, it includes all. But if we limit to the text only, what is manifested there, it mentions so many things. Uh, One who hears the readings of Natya Shastra, puts it into practice, and witness carefully the performance of Natya, will attain the same blessed goal which matters of Vedic knowledge and performance of sacrifice or givers of gifts will attain in the end. That means it is referring to dharma, artha, kama, and moksha. So even the natya can lead us to attainment of purusartha chatushtaya. So I hope with this now you have realized why it was so important to discuss about the four goals of life as the foundation of Hinduism, and obviously as the foundation of the Sadharanikaran model of communication. Because even if we are communicating, we are not limiting to the transfer of information only. Obviously transmission of information or sharing of information is there, but it is not limited to that only. So now we can revisit ancient Bharat Varsha through Natya Shastra, like geography, like ethnography, like language. Okay, then we can have discussion on literature. We can have some sort of indication to food habit, costumes and ornament, art, mythology and legend, health and nourishment, social sciences. Okay, all this has been discussed in this chapter. And even we can have a feminist study or gender analysis of Natya Shastra. Then how it okay approaches the reality. Like in the West, you might have heard there are at least two traditions. Okay, worldview first and worldview second. This is how they refer, like uh, quantitative uh, approach and qualitative approach. So likewise here also, you can see how reality can be approached. So we can see empiricist view as well. We can see interpretative paradigm as well. So in a way, Natya Shastra has so many things that can be discussed and that can be relevant for us. And then in the chapter third, I have discussed the relevance and significance of Natya Shastra from communication perspective. After giving uh, an overview of what Natya Shastra discusses, and for that, first I have discuss the scope of Natya Shastra. The discussion is the scope is not limited to this or that discipline. Obviously, in dramaturgy, in poetics, in aesthetics, uh, in whatever may be said, sociology and anthropology, it is already used there. And what I have argued that okay, this is relevant for communication as well. And to further examine, now I have reached to page 91. To further examine its relevance, I have employed a checklist approach. Okay, I have developed some checklists, a checklist consisting of different indicators. The most important one is intrinsic qualification. Whether Natya Shastra can be considered a text relevant for communication. For that, it must have intrinsic qualification. That means it must have some insights on practices and principles of communication. So it can be applied to anything, like Ramcharitmanas. If you would like to uh, conduct research on that, then the first question would be, does it contain practices and principles on communication? Like uh, you would like to conduct research on some folklore from Madhya Pradesh, let us say. Then obviously the first question would be, okay, why am I considering this text for communication research? Does it contain something uh, intrinsically qualified to communication? There must be something about communication practices and uh, uh, principles. Then next point is new insights. Does it add something? Like, how does Sadharanikaran model of communication add something to communication discipline? If it doesn't add, then why to have a burden of having yet another theory or model? If it gives something new, only then it would be pertinent for further discussion. Third thing is indigenous theorization. So does it contribute for indigenous theorization of communication, or it would be just like indigenization of the Western theories? That is just trying to localize Western theories. If it gives indigenous theory, then its contribution will be more significant. And the fourth one is okay, cultural identity consciousness. So all these intercultural communication, multiculturalism, all these things, they have something with this cultural identity consciousness. Does it add value to that? But it should not promote ethnocentrism. There is difference between cultural identity consciousness and ethnocentrism. Ethnocentrism must not be encouraged. It must be okay, discouraged. But there shall be cultural identity consciousness, and okay, whenever you take something from India or Nepal or from anywhere in the world, then okay, that will be more significant if it adds. So then some discussion has been done about de-westernization to put this model in the broader global context that we discussed earlier as well, how validation comes, how to do mainstreaming of our theories. Okay, for that, let us see in the context of de-westernization. And then the philosophical and cultural foundation of society. Does this theory represent this? Okay, Does this model represent that? Like, we put question, okay, Hinduism has such philosophical foundations, and we have to see if Sadharanikaran model of communication fulfills that. If it fulfills that, then yeah, its claim to have indigenous theory, its claim to present indigenous model of communication, its claim to represent Hinduism in the communication milieu is well founded. Otherwise, yeah, it won't be. So, and then multidisciplinary nature of communication discipline. Does it contribute for multidisciplinarity? Like, does it contribute for multiculturalism? And does it contribute for promotion of comparative study of communication? In page 102, I have mentioned this promotion of comparative study of communication. And with these points, okay, Natya Shastra has been examined. Okay, so and it is argued that okay, it is worthful to explore Natya Shastra from communication perspective. And uh, as I mentioned, various aspects of communication, verbal, non-verbal, all these things uh, have been mentioned uh, in Natya Shastra. But while going further, I felt an urgency, a requirement to have further discussion on verbal communication, and for that I refer to Vakyapadiya, which is authored by Bhartrihari, whose another name is like Trikandi, because it has three chapters. Okay, and so the Vakyapadiya and Trikandi, they are treated as synonymous, but Vakyapadiya is more a popular name. Uh, then it consists of, the first kanda is called Brahma Kanda, the book on Brahman, Paramatman. So how one attains moksha through, let us say, this deliberation, that is discussed. As I mentioned earlier as well, and I would like to emphasize again, in Hinduism, if a shastra does not address artha, kama, and moksha, dharma obviously must be there. So only by addressing all of dharma, artha, kama, and moksha, it would be considered a complete shastra. Otherwise, it will be an incomplete shastra. So that is why even Arthashastra, if you might have gone through Kautaliya Arthashastra, uh, obviously he mentions how knowing about Arthashastra further contributes for understanding dharma and uh, kama and also moksha. If you go to Vatsayana's Kama Shastra or Kama Sutra, though the text is primarily on kama, but it doesn't limit itself to kama only. Okay, so in this or that way, there will be discussion on dharma, artha, and moksha as well. So this is the pattern of Hinduism. So to make communication a true vidya, communication in which discipline most of us are working, to make it prestigious in the milieu of Hinduism and Buddhism, even Jainism, there was a need to interpret communication discipline in all of these dimensions. Okay, so so Brahmakanda is the first section, and Vakyakanda, book on sentences, is the second section, and the Padakanda, book on words. So Vakyapadiya is in fact Vakya and Pada, words. And to mention uh, very briefly, Bhartrihari considers Sphota as the smallest unit of word, and while discussing that, he goes to uh, three layers of a word: Pasyanti, Madhyama, and Vaikhari. And he doesn't discusses at another level, Para. So in Veda, in Rig Veda itself, there is mention of Chatwari Vak, Para, Pasyanti, Madhyama, Vaikhari. But Bhartihari, since he was writing this in a particular context, he limits his discussion up to Pasyanti level. Okay, and Vaikhari is what we hear, what is uttered, that is Vaikhari. What is in the mind, that is Madhyama, and what can be seen, what can be observed in the state of meditation, that is Pasyanti. So Vaikhari can be heard, listened. So Sravana is there. Vaikhari is for Sravana. And again, the decoding process, if you see, what is listen would go for Manana. Again, mental course. Then, then Sravana, Manana, Nididhyasana. Okay, Nididhyasana yogis can do, even sansara yogis can do. Okay, and the ultimate stage would be sakshatkara. So in the if you remember, I had mentioned isthula, vaikhari is isthula, which can be heard. So madhyama is sukshma, and pasyanti is karana. And there is at another state of, let us say, moksha, that is turiya stage. And yeah, para, sakshatkara with para. So this is how things are discussed in Bhartihari's Vakyapadiya. That is why I took little bit from there. In a way, you can say these are the two principal texts. But if you compare, Natyashastra is the primary text, okay, and the we can say Bhartihari's Vakyapadiya is the subsidiary text here. So with this, I have come to the end of what I wanted to present from my side. Now we'll go for further discussion. Thank you. Okay. Yeah, you have already raised your hand. Please go ahead.
So we have seen many pictures and idols, cravings on the temples of our India and also in Nepal also. And
Yeah, yeah,
during the
yeah.
cave time also, cavemen also used to make drawings on the caves, walls of the caves. Can that be somewhere
Yeah.
related to Natya Shastra?
They have they have in fact two major sources. One, as you rightly mentioned, Natya Shastra and all these, let us say, poetic tradition, even traditions from the Puranas and Mahabharata, Ramayana, they actually wanted to depict what is there in the text, what is there in the history. Okay, that is one side. But another side is Tantra, specific, okay, images, they are there due to this tantric tradition as well. So very briefly, we have one this artistic dimension, Natya Shastra tradition, and another is in a way for anusthana purpose. Okay, that owes to tantra.
So you had talked about different kind of um, what is that non-verbal communication between chapters 8 and 13, and of course they talk in terms of different um, like what I'm trying to say is yoga also has uh, in yoga we have certain limb movements or certain, so is yoga
Yeah.
also somehow related to this whatever is taught in yoga by
Uh,
way.
so I remember I used to mention. Aditya Kumar Shukla, Dr. Aditya Kumar Shukla, he did his PhD on yoga philosophy from communication perspective. Okay, there he has explained how, okay, these verses in the Yoga Sutra are relevant for communication. So, but the difference here in Natyashastra and in Yoga Sutra is, in Yoga Sutra, the movements of various, let us say, limbs. Okay, that is for yogic purpose. Okay, you are trying to achieve uh, okay yogihood. But here in Natya Shastra, though you are doing this, though the actors are doing this, that is not for themselves, it is for demonstration purpose. Okay, so in yoga, what is done there, all these asanas and all these things, they are for own self. I'm doing that for myself. Okay, but in Natya Shastra, whatever gestures, whatever postures, all these things, they are done for the audiences, prekshakas. That is the difference. So, since all the body movements and all these things are done purposively in the context of Natya Shastra, they have direct communicative context. Whereas in the yoga, how one should attain that samatvam yoga uchyate, that the state of yoga, that let us say, in a way, theoretical perspective is more important there. Whereas in Natya Shastra, this applied aspect is also equally important, and that the theories on bhavas and rasas, they are also equally important. So this is some kind of let us say distinction.
So another question: how is
Yeah,
symbolism related? Symbolism, because
yeah, symbolism is very important. That is why we had chitra vinaya, samanya vinaya, like not only gestures and postures, not only vachika vinaya words, but the physical objects and symbols, colors, all these things were discussed in Natya Shastra. Kinesics, we discuss proxemics, and so on, isn't it? Physical context, haptics, all these things. So that we find there. Okay, two hands have been raised. Please, one by one.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
So when you said Anushthan purposes, uh, what does it mean?
Anusthana purpose mean?
Yes, sir. What does it actually mean, imply?
Okay. Anusthana means some rituals conducted for certain objectives. Like you do puja, for instance. Okay. You do yajna. You do mudra in case of tantra, like that. So you want to achieve something. Uh, Sometimes it is even for material goal, like uh, so many people visit Tirupati with some desire. Okay, if this happens, then I'll do something, I'll offer something, or like this. Okay, this is also a kind of understand. So what we do in our home, like we do Rudri, we do Satyanarayan Puja, okay, we do some Havan. That is also a kind of Anustan. But in Tantric context, there are particular, okay, Anushtanas means some process. Okay, Samudras, yeah, use of Panchamakara, or there is another Sattvic Tantra which does not use all these things. So, whatever we do, yeah, for this purpose, these all will be termed as Anusthana, and the higher state of Anusthana is Sadhana. Did I make it clear?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you so much.
Okay, okay. Another hand is also raised there. Please go ahead.
Okay, sir.
So,
My simple query is that during chanting of different mantras, uh, uh, we use uh, so many mudras, uh, different
yes,
mudras of a hand,
yes,
and
yeah.
so many. Does this mudra has any significance or relevant to communication or not? Just simple query.
So it has two relevance. One, like in Natya or like in depiction in the temple or somewhere, if you use certain mudra, it will mean certain thing. Okay. So obviously, it's about symbolism. It's about signification. So it obviously has communicative meaning. And another dimension is if you chant or recite inwardly some mantra with some specific mudras, then the energy due to that mantra would be rightly let us say transmitted into your body. So mudras are physical dimensions. Okay. Mantras have, as we mentioned earlier, since mantras inherit sattvari vak, obviously they have physical, mental as well as spiritual dimension. Okay, please go ahead, Deepika Kashyap.
Uh, Thank you, sir, for wonderful lecture. Sir, actually, I am working on internet folklore. So
Yeah.
I am thinking how I can implement your model into my research.
Okay. So for instance, you can take uh, folklores. The easiest way would be okay, and
Yes.
how different bhavas and rasas are invoked there. So you will find bhavas and rasas. Great discussion on it. Great description on it in Natyashastra. Okay, how
Mm-hmm.
these bhavas and rasas can be presented in the scheme of communication from this Sadharanikaran model, and the actual
Mm-hmm.
text you will conduct research on would come from the folklores under your sample.
And how I can study the digital performance of the indigenous communities.
So for that you should have digital footprint of them. Okay, since you are your data shall be digital. So
Mm-hmm.
first of all, make sure that they have digital presence.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah, sir.
then
They are
after,
posting on the
yes, yes,
Facebook
yes.
and they are posting
So,
through the
so
memes
yes. So
and yeah.
this is how you get the digital data on your relevant area, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
Now it's a kind of content analysis for you. Okay, and while doing content analysis, the indicators will come from Natyasastra and the Sadharanikaran model of communication.
Mm.
Okay, this is how you can do. And yeah, I just indicated how it can be done. You can we can work further. Okay, while doing your research, you can
Mhm.
contact me. I'll certainly help you in developing your indicators, and then having the code book for that, and then okay, you can have your data.
Okay, okay. Thank you so much, sir.
So it's
And
very pertinent thing you have, okay, um, identified. You can do it.
sir, what about like can we do a gender dynamics in that?
Yeah, yeah, yes. Gender is another,
Okay,
yeah, theory that can obviously be conducted.
okay. Thank you so much, sir.
Yeah, welcome. Okay, we have uh, few minutes to discuss further. Please come up with your queries or yeah, feedback.
I
Yeah,
have
please.
something, so may I tell? So, like I have been like studying like communication as like in my bachelor, and now like with you here. So after
Mhm.
that, apart from like studying a communication theory, like I do have some experience in dancing also. So, like I specifically trained for like contemporary dance style. So it does have like different origins. Like it's technically like derived from the like ballet dance form. So
Yeah,
it have its background on theories, and
yeah,
obviously like we are talking about Natyashastra, and it have also like it is very much connected with Natyashastra. And as a both but I'm a practitioner of this communication theories, and as a individual dancer, so I have been observing my fellow dancers also. Like if you see the Nepali dance scenario, or like traditional scenario, we do not have like theoretical background much widerly. So there are very few people who practice both theory and like a practical form of dancing. So while observing like them, like as a communication student, like I have seen like them practicing different forms of like this dancing things like that we are described in Natya Sastras. Like we talked about like makeup, settings, language, like body languages, expressions. Like we have been like from the coming from this Bharat Bersia area. I think it is rooted in everyone, like every community. Like we have different community coming from different ethnic groups, like people, we have variety of peoples from different communities. So I think in a sense, from my observation, like in a we all have this like all have been practicing this Natya Sastra and like its components without knowingly, like not consciously, like subconsciously we are practicing it, and like we were like following it. So I think this course, I think, is very much important for all of us. And I think this whole session, all this Natya Sastra book which you have written is also about that learning and relearning our like origins, like rediscovering our roots. And I think it is very like great experience. It was very good experience for me as an individual to like see the things like I have like discussed in classes to like physically see in the people in like society. So that's from
yeah.
myself.
Fantastic. You can, I think you can have a comparative analysis of Western dances, and let us say folk dances, and classical dances, which are directly rooted to Natya Shastra. One thing, and another thing, you beautifully said that okay, people might not have read Natya Shastra. They might have been doing like folk dances, but still they practice that without knowing it has come from Natya Shastra. But they also practice all these bhavas, rasas, and yeah, various expressions, all these things. Beautiful. Okay, with this, maybe now we shall go for wrap up. Who would do the final wrap up for today?
So this is Akanksha. I'll do it.
Yeah, okay, please go ahead.
So we began with a summary of what had transpired in the first lecture. Thereafter, today we have talked from the certain pages of the book, and we began with what is Natya, or Natya as a discipline of knowledge, Natya Shastra as a discipline of knowledge as Natya, and then as the Sanskrit text, which is authored by it is Dada Shastri, and how Gandharv Ved is supposed to have been is it is it was written by Brahma. And then you talked about different traditions that came from the Tridev, Brahma, Vishnu, and Mahesh, and how they all summarize together to form the Natya Shastra. And we also talked about there could have been 12,000 different verses, and then only right now Shat Shastri, that means 6,000, and then 5,600 as known by as the work of Bharat remain actually, because we had Shruti and Smriti as the way to, and people who wrote did not really understand, so certain verses have been lost. Then you also mentioned the complete Natya Shastra as we know it today, basically shaped as late as 1894 when it appeared as a full text and it was published. And in the Natya Shastra, you gave us details of how there are 36 adhyaya or chapters which are in the form of verses and prose, and how from the first chapter, which is the origin of drama, which is theatrical. It begins with the venerations of Brahma and Mahesh, and then in the chapter 2 description of the playhouses, chapter 3 is the puja, different pujas of the gods. You went on to describe until chapter 36. Chapter 4 is the Tandav dance, chapter 5 is the preliminaries or the Purvaranga, and chapter 6 is Ras and Bhav, wherein Shringar, Hasya, Karuna, Raudra, Veer, Bhayankar, and Adbhut are described. Chapter 7 is Bhav. 8 to 13 is Abhinay, which is the anatomy and physiology or the non-verbal part of communication. Chapter 14 is it is uh, zonal, I think, and which is from 15 to 19 it is more verbal. 20 to 21 chapter is on plays and the typology of plays. Then chapter 22 is on the different styles, and 23 is on costumes and on makeups, and chapter 24 and 25 talks about abhinay. Chapter 26 talks about siddha, and 27 to 33 talks about nritya. Then chapter 34 and 35 is on production or the different kind of characters that are part of the Natya Shastra or would be in a play, in a Natya. And chapter 36 is on the descent of the Natya on earth, how it came into being. And thereafter you talked about the you have been also discussing the different questions or queries of the participants. So like this you have enlightened us through the complete background of Natya Shastra and how it is related to, now we'll talk about how it is related to communication. That's it, sir.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. With this, since it's already 6 2, we shall end today's session, and next Saturday we will be discussing on the Sadharanikaran model itself. Okay. So earlier session was on philosophical background. This is on textual background, and the third one will be on the model itself. So thank you all, and see you.